Okay, I'm going to start with some portrait studies. If I have time, I'll run over Artie's form studies, really beautiful form studies. I'm going to try to run over everybody's real quick, just to make sure that I cover the principles, though. All right, let's start with this. This piece here is really cute. I like it. It reads really quickly. You have a couple of issues, though, with the neck, chin, skull area. This is what happens when you sort of don't think about it like as an anatomical structure that has like structural integrity. So let's say we were looking at this character from front view. We would have her eyes, her nose, her mouth starts here. So this starts at the corner of her lip, so it would be over here if we were to draw lines, and this ends right about here. The way you drew it in three-quarter view does not read in front view. This is because you have a rotation problem. When you don't think about the character as being front view, when you don't consider the character in all the views, you're going to draw that character really off center and off the vertical axis when you draw the character in three-quarter view. This happens because you don't think about the symmetry line as the governing force of how the face portrait, how the portrait's proportions are organized. So if you think about the symmetry line beforehand, you think about the vertical and horizontal symmetry lines, you will not make this kind of mistake because the symmetry line will help you measure how wide the eyes are and the relative place of the mouth. How do you say it? My brain is not good today. The mouth relative to the placement of the eyes. And that's sort of what's going to make sure you never make that measurement mistake. That measurement mistake is a really bad, a really quick sign, I guess. It's a bad thing to have, yes, of course, but it's a quick sign that you're not measuring and you're skipping and you're freestyling. And no student should freestyle unless they've absolutely mastered proportions, unless they've done like at least 1,000 portraits in their lifetime that are really well done. At that point, you can start freestyling because the axes are permanently engraved in your mind. You're always going to see the horizontal and vertical axes. So look at the difference just before and after with this correction here. All right. And push the chin forward. Again, thinking about the rotation, thinking about the 3D objects that are the bumps and the mountains and sort of the high points. Before, the chin was cut off after. So that front view that I drew for you guys, the eyes and the nose and then the mouth, the chin cut off just like that, as if someone took a big chunk and cut her chin off. This is a very, very bad problem, and it's basically what I would call it is the three-quarter view, the plague of three-quarter view. There's different kinds of signs where you're not rotating properly. The first sign is if you draw like a really high cheekbone, and this cheekbone is from this side, looks like it's got a lot of fat on it, instead of drawing a contour line that responds to the light source that you placed on one cheekbone. That's one plague of the three-quarter view. The other is, of course, keeping the lip on this side, because this is the cartoony ears coming in and affecting the way you draw. So if you were to draw it from as a sketch, you would just draw. See this? This is all the way here, and it looks fine because it's a sketch, but when you transfer it into realism and add in lighting, you're introducing a whole other world of anatomy that requires certain rules to be followed. Another plague is adding both nostrils in instead of one nostril because the other nostril is just hidden. You're not doing that right now, but of course it's one of the reasons, one of the things that happen when a student doesn't really rotate in their mind. It doesn't think about the form as a rotatable object in space. Another thing that you have is matching the inner corners of the eyes. This is another telltale sign you're not measuring. If you don't measure, you're going to have these issues on and off for the rest of your life as an artist. You have to start measuring. Get that measurement crap out of the way. Get the mathematics out of the way and just start the fun early. If you're skipping this stuff, you're going to have issues. These two corners need to be aligned. There's a horizontal line running through everything. And it's not just these horizontal lines. There's horizontal lines everywhere. There's grid lines, contour lines. You see them in 3D modeling. This corner should be aligned with this corner. So let's take a look at the before and after. Alright? Push the neck forward a little bit as well because that neck is a little bit cartoony neck. It's a little bit of a cartoony neck. I'm going to fix the eyebrow as well. The eyebrow should start where the eyes start. That's the function aspect of the eyebrow. Alright, so let's see what everyone's saying. I literally do this with every single 3/4 view though, which is my fave angle to draw. So all my pics do this, sweeps openly. Problem with the symmetry line is that you can do that wrong. So if you don't get that right, you still foul it all up. I almost never get that center line right. I did a schoolism course on Kara design. Oh my god, so many center line corrections. Maybe the center line is correct, but the other lines are mucked up. Yeah, it happens. Very few instructors really take time to explain those lines. Okay, how do you draw the line successfully? You have to think of the line as a piece of tape traveling through the entire face, traveling on top of every angle of the face, over every contour. So that line travels everywhere. It's not just one vertical line that just stands like that, because that can confuse you. That will confuse you. Not can, it will, absolutely. If you're drawing, Shauna, if you're drawing the line like this, how the hell are you supposed to know exactly? Because the line right now is touching this side of the nose. It's touching this side of the lip. It's not really on the highest point. It's just a guideline at this point. It's not a line that respects the contours you already have in there. Okay? If you want to draw a successful vertical line, draw it on top. This is a line to correct what you already have. Draw it on top. It'll really sort of help you see where the high points are, where they are not. This is if you already have a face. If you're starting from scratch, that line that you draw from 3/4 view should be seen only as a guideline. It should not be seen, first of all, it should not be straight at all. It should be curved, because this is a sphere on which you're drawing this line. So see it first as a 3/4 view of a cube-based sphere, or a cube-shaped sphere. And then on top of it, remember that this line isn't the actual, what do you call it? It isn't a graphing or a mapping of, how do I fucking say it? The features don't have to touch this line, every part of this line. Meaning this is a guideline on where to keep the features hovering in this area. So if you were going to draw the triangle of the nose, the upper triangle of the lips, just make sure that the extremes of these shapes touch the line. So you're talking about the lower triangle here, the upper triangle. They both have to be in 3/4 view, and I've made a video on how to draw a nose in 3/4 view, so please watch it. It talks about the symmetry line a lot. It'll help you put the nose in the right spot on the symmetry line. But these extremes are pretty much the only things that should be touching this. See how it's curved? This vertical line. So there's an extreme here, and it has to curve with the contours, or else this vertical line does not make sense. This vertical line, if you draw it right on the top of the contours, you're practically drawing the side view of the character. You can draw the side view, a little bit of extra dips here and there, but you can draw the side view of this character here with a proper symmetry line. Remember that it's a guideline, and you cannot know where to place objects on the guideline if you don't think of the objects as having extreme points. These extreme points are the highest points of the object. What I mean by extreme points is the highest point of the mountain right here. So this is the nose, this is the highest point of the nose, and this is the nostril. The highest point of the lip, extreme point, extreme point. The vertical line touches these extreme points because these are the points that stick out, whose sides we see in the 3/4 view. 3/4 view is a very, very complicated view because you're thinking both in the 2D and the 3D at the same time, and you're seeing a rotation. It's a very difficult view to really rotate in your mind and really get a good hold of. So when you draw the vertical line, remember that you're drawing the vertical line for these high points right here, as well as the symmetry, as well as measuring the distance. And remember, 3/4 view does not mean, please, if you remember anything, remember this. 3/4 view, the vertical line on the 3/4 view, guys, is not telling you that this is an equal space to this. Please, please watch that video on how to draw a nose in 3/4 view that I made. It is do not make the mistake of thinking that the symmetry line for front view, which is very easy because you just have to make this the same as this the same as this, and this the same as this. This is front view. 3/4 view means you're compressing this whole side. This whole side gets shrunk by a proportionate amount. So this is not the same measurement as this. This is not the same measurement as this. And this is not the same measurement as this. The vertical symmetry line in 3/4 view is not a symmetry line that tells you either side is the same angle. Is the same length. All right? What did I just say? I need all of you to write that back to me. And for those who didn't hear it, you'll see your friends say it. So you'll read it there, because I'm not repeating it. I need to know you guys are listening. Okay. I need to, there's a 15-second delay. YouTubers. Oops. Just a throat burp. One side gets compressed, okay? The measurement on the compressed side is not the same as the side nearest to you. The one facing away. The vertical line in 3/4 view is no symmetry line. Exactly. It's not a symmetry line. It is the symmetry line, but it's also in 3/4 view. It's the symmetry line. This is Bob. No, it's not. Can't be Bob because I heard the name someone Bob. This is Peter. The symmetry line is Peter. It's still Peter here. It's just Peter from the side. Peter in a whole new angle. Peter after 12 o'clock. All right. The compressed side is not the same as the closed side. The sides are not equal length in 3/4 view. Think of the compressed length in 3/4 view. All right. If you remember that, you won't confuse and you won't mess up and you won't draw this eye the same length as this eye between, because I know you do this, Shauna, and I've seen it. In your 3/4 views, you have the same distance between both eyes in 3/4 view from the symmetry line. I think I've seen that in your work. You do hide one nostril though, but the lip also has that. Sometimes the lip is all the way up here. So that's vertical line. How about the horizontal lines? The horizontal lines are pretty much why I placed. So this horizontal line right here, let me just try to think of the whole shape. So this needs to be sitting on this. This corner needs to be sitting on this line, and this corner needs to be sitting on this line. And the vertical line tells me that this distance from here is shorter than this distance from here. Is everybody getting what I'm saying? The horizontal line tells us where to place the lips on which line to make sure that they look right. They're not wonky, so if you see her face from the side, her lips don't naturally do a wonk. And the vertical line tells us how compressed one side is. Remember the 5th of November. I have to do that. That's OCD. Please remember that this compression is compression. It's not foreshortening. All right? So don't shrink the size of this eye. The size of this eye stays the same scale because these horizontal lines are just rotation lines. They're just the lines on which we're rotating this piece of cheese on this toothpick, this kebab stick. All right. We're just rotating. Is this side gonna be foreshortened? Is this side of the cheese gonna start getting foreshortened? No, it's just compressing. It's literally gonna stay almost the same length each through the compression. We're not having that much of a distance between the nose and this eye. So remember, 3/4 view is not compression. Horizontal lines determine where these horizontal axes of the features sit. And the vertical line on 3/4 view is not a line of measurement, is not a symmetry line. It is the symmetry line that cuts across the face, but it is not the symmetry line that determines whether both sides have equal length. In 3/4 view, both sides do not have equal length. There is There is a compression that happens because that side is moving away from you. There is a distance, so there's going to be compression because this side is moving away. All right? So horizontal foreshortening? No, Raka, absolutely not. There is no foreshortening in 3/4 view. If her hand was all the way back here, saying no, step, then this would be foreshortening because there's a big distance between this and this. This point, point A, and point B, which is her face and her hand. All right? So that's the science of it. That's the why of why this turned into this. All right, so thank you for those questions, Bass. The more questions you guys ask, the more I'll answer, and maybe there's someone in there who isn't really understanding what I'm saying. And so because of your question and me answering it, that person gets a sort of better understanding of what it is that I'm talking about, especially if it's the person that I'm critiquing here. Right? These are big, big, big problems that you have. They're not small. You have an anatomy and a form problem. Whenever remember this, guys, whenever I say you have a form problem, you need to stop everything you're doing and start doing some form studies. If you're not understanding what a cube is and how a cube rotates in open space and how symmetry lines sit on a cube, then you are not going to draw a face successfully. You're going to draw a face by using an eye to find the nose and using the nose to find the mouth. You're not going to think about it as one big beautiful system that has a great world of anatomy behind it. Okay? So, yes, it would only foreshorten if there was a fisheye lens. Absolutely. If the camera was right beside the eyeball, like right beside the eyeball, like touching the eyeball, and the other eyeball was on the other end of the camera, so you've got like eyeball and then one tiny eyeball and the nose, and you've got like a big close-up and you see the eye, that's foreshortening. It's shrinking in scale and it's compressing. Yeah, if it was a really big giant, of course, because if it was a giant, then that means there's a distance factor. Fish eye, so terrible to draw. 43 viewers. You can, Ito, but you just get behind or skip a part. How do you do odd angles like a bird's eye view of a head and a body? You treat it as you think of it as the top side. So if it's like a big giant, you're going to have to draw the top side of everything. The top side of the head, the top side of the shoulders. And I'm drawing a Minecraft character here, but basically that's, in theory, you're supposed to draw the top side and make sure everything near the bottom is shrunken. Okay, you don't have to do the exact scientific measurement. It doesn't have to be the exact size of the feet. It can be a little bit exaggerated and you can get away with it. All right, on to the next critique. So kind of really wary when I cover this kind of sciencey stuff. I really hope that you guys remember and realize the importance of what I just covered. It's really, really imperative that you invest your attention on your studies and the rules and the fundamentals behind before any other thing, before creativity, before your individuality in your art. Just remember the science factor, the fact that you will have to be drawing something readable that is recognizable and familiar. And then after a point in the future, when you've done a decent amount of rules in your work or done a decent amount of work with rules in it, you can start breaking rules, but that is so far ahead in the future. Please just stick to your work. It'll read quicker and you'll like your work the better for it. You're going to like your art better. You're going to like yourself better. You're going to say, wow, I can draw. And that's going to feel good. So just please remember that I'm not just sitting here talking about one option. I'm talking about the only option. You have to start measuring your images. I can't express how important it is, especially for artists who really want to get into portraiture. Let's stick to the same theme. Alright, so this character right here. Lots and lots of portraiture nowadays. So here's the chin. Vertical line is telling us that Yeah, you pretty much align the nose with the chin very well. The only issue is, I don't know if you have an anime background. I've kind of been wary of accusing people of having anime backgrounds, but it's starting to look like an anime background. Um, Not background, like an influence, because this eye is all the way over here. And that's telling me that I'm starting to see like that anime influence because that eye is all the way over there. What I would need to see is an eye that sits on top of a skeleton. Anime, the reason why I always bring up that word whenever I see a really bad three-quarter view or something like that, um, anime does not follow skeleton. It does not follow a skeleton. It doesn't think about that. It's got its own anatomy. And it's got its audience. It's not that it's bad, but I'm saying if you want to draw where you're applying, cheekbone shadows and cheekbone lights and all of that, what you're going to do is you're going to apply realism on non-realism lines, on non-realism proportions. You're going to try to make something that is not supposed to be a face, a real human face, and that becomes uncanny. So that eye was a little bit far away from where it should be on the skeleton. If you're thinking about the face as having three quarters, the two outer quarters of the four quarters of a face, the two outer quarters move away. So what I mean by that is you've got the front side where the eyes and the nose and the lips are, and then you've got the sides here. This side you don't see because it's not visible. That's why it's called three-quarter view, because you see 1, 2, 3. And this side you don't see it. So you only see 3, what the heck, 3 of the 4 quarters. All right? So this means you have to keep the eye on this side, or else the eye that you drew before was on that side. So if we were to see her face from the front, we'd see an eye, a nose, a mouth, and an eye like on the other side. So we'd see part of her eyeball and some lashes. So everything is good front view, but then you've got that one eye on the other side. So if you want to keep that realism, please remember that if you don't think about the skeleton, you're going to have this problem. All right? Before, after. Oh, whoops. After. I always have trouble with the shading lighting on the cheeks. Yeah, three-quarter view. Yeah, a lot of people don't think about it like that. Yeah, it really sticks out when you do that. Back to Minecraft. Yeah, okay. So if you think about the skeleton, you won't make these kinds of mistakes because the skeleton is pretty much the hard structure on which in which the eyeballs sit. So if you've got a skull, a skull picture, resources for class. If you've got like a skeleton nearby that you look at and you measure it, you'll see it's got all the symmetry intact. Everything is in place. Of course, it's like an organic structure, so it's going to have some asymmetry. Practically got a line right here, holy crap. But yeah, if you think about it like this, you won't make these kinds of mistakes ever, ever. It just will not be possible because you're always going to be thinking about the skeleton. The eyeballs sit here. You see this shadow? Even on the skeletal level, the shadow in between the eyeballs is there. Because this is all the skeletal level. You peel off the skin, this is what's making all the rules. This is the culprit behind all of these rules. The skeletal structure, the hard structure that's controlling where all this fleshy and squishy stuff sits on. Your faces will look so much nicer. They'll feel so much better. There's a couple more issues here. As for the lips being this distance, for beauty-wise, for beauty reasons, you might want to push the lips up just a little. When you increase the distance between the lips and the nose, what happens is you age the character. The character becomes aged. All right, and for that person that said they don't know where to place the light on the cheekbone, Basically, this is what you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about drawing the cheekbone as if you were drawing a sphere. Oops, wrong brush. Alright, so where you would place the lights on the sphere is only in the lightest spot. So you see my brush is going to shrink. Watch. Watch, everybody watch. My brush is going to shrink and it's going to move toward the highest point. So everybody watch. I'm going to do it a couple times. It's shrinking. I need to increase the opacity. It's shrinking, it's shrinking, it's shrinking, and it's reaching a high point. It's telling me if I were to get two lines, two pieces of tape, and tape them on this, it's telling me this point, oh shit, it's telling me this point here is the highest point on this ball, and it's the point that it's exposed directly to the light source that's coming from this edge. So if you place light on your, on your cheeks, I'll do it again for those who missed it. If you place light on the cheeks, the same thing, you're just getting half the circle, but where's the light source coming from? You shrink your brush according to where the light source is. And that's what gets the lightest spot on the cheek. I really like the way you did the hair. Please don't change that. It's really beautiful. Same thing with the nose. Only the lightest spot gets the smallest brush stroke and the lightest brush stroke. Alright, but that's kind of a confused set that I just made. You have to start casting some shadows too. It's not just about the light source. And if the cheekbones are even that big, you still have to ask yourself if the cheekbones are even that big. So before, after. Before, after. It's rules. It's not style. It's not my style making this painting look readable. It's the rules that I did not invent, that were there since the dawn of time. It's just how our anatomy works. Believe in God or believe in nature or whatever, it's just we've been designed with a very specific symmetrical design. That's really important to us, to our function. So that means that profile view is actually 2/4 view, yeah, which is only half your face. 2 out of 4 equals 1 out of 2. You want to get the most common fraction. What's it called when you like shrink the fraction? Bye, Trigger. Thanks for coming. Mister, can you help me? This might be a bit off topic, but how do you add the redness to skin where blood is under the skin? That is off topic. If you paint something for me that is with color in it and you submit it for next class, I will cover. Just write on the image that you want some work on the redness of the skin and I'll cover it there. But that is a bit off topic. I won't be able to cover it today. Okay, Mambuto, so paint something that's colored, paint a face that's colored for me, write a little blurb on the image, and submit it to class, and I'll look at it next time. Promise. Any other questions? Suddenly cranium. So that means that, okay, I already read that. Any other questions? Would form studies be more effective drawn or rendered in light and shadow? Drawn or rendered? Both. If you want to observe how your lines turn into form, do the lines and then do the form. If you are already good, you don't really care about lines, you don't really use lines before your drawings, you just use like very basic guidelines and you go straight in with the paintbrush, go straight into the rendering. Don't use a line stage. Go straight in. Use a lasso tool, whatever it is that you use. I use a lasso tool. It makes my life really easy. It makes me helps me preserve edges. Which is very important in form studies. But either or, it depends really how your specific painting method is. Do you start with lines? If you want to experiment with your lines and see what your lines are all about, diagnose your own issues, start with lines and transfer those lines into a form study. Just remember, erase the lines. Lines are guidelines. They are not the thing itself. I often see portraits where they also make the edges of the underbite lighter. Is it because of bones? I don't understand what you mean, Edo. Yes, Mr. Mambuto is special. Alright, next image. Uh, this, I'm gonna look at this. It's just a quick thing that I wanted to show. I don't know why I'm not gonna cover anatomy at all. I want to know why she's looking this way. Photography wise, just like if I were to think of this as a photographer, why is she looking this way? If it was a character being, exposed, or if it was exhibiting a character and it's like just you're trying to show off the character. It's like a scene from a movie and they're asking you to, as the concept artist, to design sort of how it's going to look. I would just have her looking up. I would just have her looking up very menacingly. It was so much more effective. There's so much more going on. If she's looking down, the interest is already here. We'll look here. She doesn't need to be looking there. All I recommend is her looking up. She's holding him. She doesn't have to look at him. If she really wanted to give a damn about this guy, she'd be looking at him completely. She'd be like all over him. She'd be like, ooh, baby. She's holding him and she's like cuddling, ooh, baby. But because she's not doing that and it's just a hello kind of, yo, what's up, my little minion, I think it's better if she looks up forward to continue this story, to continue the line of sight somewhere else off screen, which gives it a little bit more storytelling quality to the painting. Okay, so that's exactly what that's the only thing that popped out, is her looking down was really kind of just confusing the whole story. It's kind of, you did it just because. She's like thinking. I still don't feel like I feel a threat off of her. She's wearing armor. She's got this scary little looking creature, and she's got this like really content look on her face. Instead, I would rather have her push the theme of threat, or like, oh, have you met my recent invention? It'll kick your butt. And she's like the final boss of the game. I don't know why you people listen to me. I'm so confused in life. Okay, so that's all. That's all I suggest, is changing her line of sight. It'll continue the story. This one, please, please, for the love of Jeebus, stop painting with white background. It's not good. Ugh, not good. Bad. All kinds of bad. All kinds of really bad. It's not gonna give you anything. It's gonna take away from your value buildup. So it's gonna take away from, I've already covered it in a previous video. It's gonna take away the very delicate value climb in your painting. So it's gonna be very difficult for you to really show any significant form. It's so much nicer now. Look, it's nice. It's really nice. Before I was like, why, God, why? Hadouken! And not Hadouken. Okay? You're gonna change your name. She is a strong, independent woman. Yeah, Christy, fix the eyes, fix the eyesight, and then send it back to me, and I'll have a look at the rest of the anatomy. You had a bit of an anatomy problem with the breast alignment, and she kind of looked like a little bit of a baby. She looked like a 12-year-old on a 35-year-old body. So try to think about how anatomy changes as you grow older, and how your cheekbones are more prominent for grown female characters. All right, so what else do I want changed about this? If you're going to think about it as a light source coming from kind of feels like the light source is coming from the side, because look, all the illumination is traveling on the side of his body. This part of his body would just be canceled out in some shadow. Put my glasses back on. That way we sort of have, again, a value climb. And we keep the shadow only for the furthest part of his anatomy. Just like this. And if we bring all the values down one level, look at what's going to happen. It's a very beautiful little thing that's going to happen. We're going to place the light, just like I showed you with the cheekbone, only where it's lightest. It's going to look like a 3D model in a second. But maybe it was a 3D model at one point. I'm not sure. But I'm going to place this light only on the highest points of his flesh. I fucked it up. Okay, keep my brush large. Damn, it's wreck. My brush, okay, okay, it's not working. Alright, keep my brush large. I'm shrinking my brush. I use transfer, so the brush is shrinking just by low pen pressure. Keeping the highlights only where they are needed. When the brush shrinks, the smaller the area gets, all the way over here. It's okay if it's messy because we can always clean it up. Now look at this beautiful little form change. Only the highest points of every little nook and cranny are getting some light. If you preserve the lightest point for the highest points, you're climbing. You're making the character seem more three-dimensional. You're adding a dimension of size. Same with over here. Really important to do that. Where you had your light before was, you know, having light up here. Like, where was that coming from? Was that secondary light source? It was really confused. Respond to your primary light source. If you worked 4 hours on this, 3.5 hours should have been on one light source. The rest of those hours, the last half hour is for detailing and secondary light source. Now that looks a little better. It looks like it's more three-dimensional. It's got a value climb on it. Looks more real. Looks like it's in an open space. There's no whitewash behind to really mess up the form. So we have a nice, clean, gentle, kind, loving, protective, sincere, all the good virtues of that nice gray background that helps you and does not hinder your development as an artist. It's nice. It's like, hey, how are you? How's it been? That's basically how that gray background talks. It's very, very nice. Offers to pay for coffee. Always on time. That white background, that obnoxious friend that never shows up on time and expects you to pay for like cheesecake. What the fuck am I saying? I think the Dayquil is kicking in. So before, after, before, after. My gray background, my waifu. Gray background is like a nice ASMR video. Is it 808080808? It's AD. As it's 173, 173, 173, 33, 27, 27, 0, 71, and B 68%, only web colors. It's 999999999. Yeah, expects you to pay for gas money. ASMR videos are those videos where people whisper and they're like this. They whisper. You can't barely hear anything they're saying. It's really close to you, like that. I can't believe I'm doing this. So it's 9999. Yes, the German 9. 9999. All right. What is some of your observations on what happened in the before and after with this dinosaur? What happened? What is some of your observations? Don't repeat what I said. Okay? So, let me hear them. Let me see what you guys... I'll do the before and after, like, consistently, so you guys can tell. Before. After. Before. After. Looks like a Nat Geo diagram now instead of an isometric 3D model. There's a way to keep it isometric. It's just by thinking about the shadow, placing the shadow to move this way behind him. It'll still look isometric. Just keep the shadow on that side. That's pretty much what is the difference. Easier on the eyes. Yes. So it's going to be easier for you to sit there for 15 fucking hours dealing with this without hurting your eyes, all right? There's a prediction for our generation. Our generation has never been more exposed to screens and light than any other generation in the world, ever in history. I mean, so even when TV came out years ago, it used to have radiation coming out of it or something, so people actually got blinded because of old TVs. But it's never been as bad as nowadays. So we're all predicted, like, there's a prediction we're all going to go blind by the time we're 80. Like, all our eyes are going to be really, really damaged, especially because of those iPhones and shit. So keep yourself, kind of lower the brightness of your monitors too. Some of you have it so bright. Established light and lowered the contrast. So lowered the contrast. Excellent. What does lowering the contrast do for us? Smooth transition from light to dark because of the gray BG. Smooth transition. Yes, there's a better climb. There's more clear light source now. Excellent. The light source is visible and angle-wise because we've placed the lights only where they're needed. We place them in the highest points. The highest points point to where the light source is sourcing from, the light source. I think many of us have a big generation gap. My eyes are so bad already. Suck it, young people. It became part of its environment. Excellent, Kuro. Kuro's just been spot on these days. We've created a light environment where the light now responds to the background, meaning the light is not only lighting this dragon, but it's lighting the background around him. So he makes sense now in his background. There's an actual, this is the color that would be of the sort of the value range that the grass would be in, unless the grass is pigmented and dark, of course. So this is a good light environment where we have a balance between background and here we had no light environment. You cut and pasted one object from one environment onto another environment. This is not an environment. This is hell. This is like the snowy hell. This is the Antarctic. There's nothing living back here. Not even form. Okay? After we have a light environment, we've kept a solid, consistent grayscale, climb, spectrum, call it what you want to call it. It makes sense with the background, and the positive and negative space are sharing the same light source, essentially. Smooth transition. Use flux, mix the kind of, I don't know what is hell. Whoa, 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 whoa. White is hell. Suburb crap. Wait for it. No man's land. Yes, no man's land. It's no man's land. Of course. I don't know. I just don't call it no man's land anymore. I just say it's just like hell. This is not good anyway. Giving it a title gives it validation. Okay. So what does keeping the contrast low do? No one answered that. What does it do? I just want to hear you guys say it. I've answered it already like 13 times. What does keeping the contrast low do? I heard snowman's land. Not snowman's land, Edo. Smartass. You don't know? You don't know what keeping the contrast low does for the form? What have you learned these past months? Higher contrast tends to make 3D shapes appear to have steeper curvature. Excellent. Lower contrast gives more time to establish the form. Yes, allows a more blunt, no, a more, what's the word? It's like curved and gentle. A more short, yeah, a shorter climb. So the opposite of steep. So if you have dark and you have this, it's not, the background's nice. You have this, you're telling me this is happening, where the highest point is this color and the lowest point is this color. That's like, what the heck? There's no form climb here. If you're telling me there is this, 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 and this, let me bring in some of this. They're saying essentially that the climb is shorter. So it does a more realistic climb. So we have a more realistic object and more readable form. The climb is respective to the actual anatomy we're trying to cover within these lines that we're once drawing it. So if this was a line drawing at one point, we've replaced the line with an actual climb of values that represents what the lines are telling us, which was a tail. Like, unless a tail has like a super sharp side, which is why we bring in high contrast for sharp objects, because they have an actual steep climb. We're bringing in a short climb because this is not a steep object. It's a very circular cylinder. This is why you do form studies, because form studies really teach you how important it is to delicately climb your form, to do it with a sense of, being careful. It's very, very not good. I'm running out of words and eloquence. Not that I have eloquence to begin with. Right? Very, very good thing to remember. This isn't just for dinosaur drawings. This is for everything. You don't have to draw a dinosaur in order to have a nice gray background. It's for everything. All right, and finally, these form studies. The only thing I would suggest for you, Artie, is to 8. There we go. Is to make sure that you are adding in the highlighter, the highlight color, the value for the lightest points, and a sort of okay. I know all of the objects here are separated, but it doesn't mean they don't have to climb in their own way. You see, this looks a little bit more accurate to what's happening in the painting than what you had before, where it was a bit dimmed. It was dimmed too soon. So I know the form is separated from each other. I know the forms are not connected. They have spaces in between them, but treat them as if they are all connected. There's a bit of a less contrast on this piece here. But treat them as if they're all connected, especially because, already look at this shadow. It's very sharp. So this means this surface area has to be on the same parallel axis as this area. I've done a video on YouTube where I talk about how to lighting, basically. How to do lighting. You have to think about each object here. Each surface area of every cube as having a laser coming out of it. And if these lasers are parallel with other lasers, you go trace that laser back. That surface area has the same value as this surface area. It could be less in contrast, depending on how close it is to the light source. But it is essentially going to have the same frequency of light. It's going to have the same response to the light source. If this is paralleled with this, parallel with this, parallel with this, they're going to have the same exposure level to the light source. This, however, can be exposed to the light because it's facing toward an angle where the light is emitted. It really just depends on where the light source is. If it's from way above, off canvas, then yes, this will be as dark as this. Not as dark because this is subject to atmospheric fade. The atmosphere will fade this one out in the distance just like we have here. That's sort of basically the gist of that video. I do recommend you still watch it though. I cover a lot in that video. Saturation, color, intensity, angle, light sources, different kinds of light sources, and reflected secondary light source. So I talk about it over there. A lot of that stuff. But that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you about for your form study. You're not treating the surface areas as having parallel lines on them. As having. Alright, so that's pretty much all I care about, is making sure that you have the right kind of contrast. Contrast is what's happening, but why it's happening is because of those lasers I showed you. So remember the lasers. Okay, Saraka? Same thing here. Same laser, but at a distance. So it's not going to have the same kind of light source, but it is technically in need of some. Need of some light. Okay? So now it seems like all of these cubes are sourcing from the same light source. The light source before was sort of exclusive to this cube because you felt that cube was the biggest, closest to the light source. Not true. There's a light environment. And that light environment has the same effect on everything in the room. Because the background is subject to that light environment, all the objects are. So before, after. Remember those lasers. And that's it. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a great day. Bye-bye.